I was on a school ski trip, had a minor fall. So by the end of the day, the next day when we were actually leaving, couldn't control my arms. I had to be at the back of the coach, laying down on the back seat with almost every seatbelt wrapped around me just so I didn't hurt myself. They were terrified, absolutely f***ing terrified. I just couldn't really control myself. It was just so weird that suddenly became all my personality. And then I posted a video with me and a little lad called Harry. It just blew up. Like, I think within weeks, we were like talking like tens of millions of views. I remember one comment really sticks to me. It shouldn't be allowed around children. It felt so degrading. I don't think you realise that the person that's smiling could also be really struggling.
We've had such a great response to the podcast, and so many of you have been in touch asking what you can do to help. It's really simple. Just follow, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. That way we can reach more people, and that way we can celebrate these great minds that think differently. Josh Hughes started filming his haircuts during intense Tourette's episodes to show you can succeed in hands-on work even with tics. He quickly became a TikTok sensation as the Tourette's Barber, with over 1 million followers, raising awareness and inspiring many with his humor and honesty. He definitely inspired me. A quick heads up, this episode contains strong and sexually explicit language, which are involuntary aspects of Josh's Tourette's. Let's get into it. Let's see how great minds think differently. Tell me about what happened on the ski trip in Italy.
I was on a school ski trip for my second time with the school. Had a great time in Italy, and the second to last day, I had a minor fall. And I always say minor because I got straight back up. It wasn't like dramatic. There was no paramedics. Finished the rest of the day, didn't think anything of it, didn't feel any different. And the next day we were on a ski lift to finish the last day of skiing, and my back started to feel a bit like twinge, like pain. And then I had like full body jerking from that. And the pain in my back was quite severe. It's kind of shooting up and down my spine a little bit. I didn't know what was going on. I remember the kids on this ski lift, there must have been like 5 or 6 of us in there, where they were terrified, absolutely f***ing terrified. And after that, I just couldn't really control myself after I got off that ski lift. And teachers were very concerned, which then made me concerned because I could see from their faces and stuff. I had to sit out the rest of the day, which was frustrating. But I've always had that in my life where actually I saw another side to the teachers because they had to look after me for the day. And just everything, all barriers of teacher-student thing just dropped.
Okay. And
I think they were slightly concerned, so we were talking a lot more openly. Anyway, so by the end of the day, the next day when we were actually leaving, couldn't control my arms. Like, they were really like coming out, and I was quite scared. And I had to be at the back of the coach, laying down on the back seat with almost every seatbelt wrapped around me just so I didn't hurt myself anymore. And I think by that point I was already so exhausted from that day prior that I don't really remember that trip home. It was about 23 hours home. I genuinely don't really remember much of it. I wasn't drugged up or anything, obviously.
No, but that sounds really traumatic, right? Teenager and that happening a long way from home.
Yeah, without my parents being there, and I was worried about what they would think. I didn't know what was happening. Cut a long story short, tried to adapt back to normal life, and fuck you and your mum. We had to work out what was going on. And one of the initial things they thought, because it wasn't vocal at all, it was just physical, they thought I had a trapped nerve in my back.
In your back.
Yeah, so we looked into that, and I saw chiropractors and osteopaths and things like that and doctors and whatnot. Realised it wasn't really doing anything. And actually, I was getting more and more uncomfortable going to like therapy like that, because osteopaths and chiropractors, because I couldn't be still. Then we started looking more into the neurological side of it, and I got diagnosed quite quickly. I think within 6 weeks we were talking about Tourette's.
Okay. And is that, from everything that you've learned, I guess, since, is that onset, is that normal? Can that happen?
From what I've spoken to, I mean, maybe not the situation of having a fall, because now looking back, they think there was a connection with the fall and back of my spine and the spinal cord in the back of the brain. I think that was just a trigger, but I have seen and heard from other people how quickly it can come on. Like, for example, I've had a child who, over the course of the summer, has developed it quite quickly and gone from 0 to 100. I hate the term normal, but being normal to then full-blown vocal, motor and physical tics.
Wow.
So I don't think that's unusual at all.
And is there any Tourette's in your family history that you know of?
No, not that I know of at all.
Because I know that there is Or the view is that there's a genetic component, right? And therefore you're born with it. But there was zero signs, nothing previous to that.
I don't think I had Tourette's, but I do think there was something in me. I think that was my trigger.
Okay.
I haven't been told that by doctors, but not against any doctors or anything at all, but I think I'd know myself more than others. And I'm talking over years I've come to this kind of
realization.
Yeah.
Because you're nearly 30, you're 30.
I'm 30 in January.
You're 30 in January.
So, yeah,
okay, not very far away. You've now been living with this for just over half your life.
Yeah.
And so Tourette's being at school, tell me how that was.
I think I have a very, I don't want to say unique, but a unique viewpoint when it came to school, because actually my school, it wasn't the best school overall, but they really looked after me. I can't really take that away from them at all. And I had to have quite a lot of time off school because they weren't 100% sure what was going on with me. They'd had assemblies about me within my year, which I think actually at the time, if they'd asked me to do that, I probably would have said no. But on reflection now, it was the best thing because wasn't really questioned about it. I was actually quite a known kid already. I was quite I'd like to think I was quite a funny kid. And then it kind of happened that not only at my school, but other kids in other schools knew me, that this kid who suddenly got Tourette's. And initially at my school, I used to get kind of, I don't want to say hounded, but kids coming up to me and stuff. But then actually it started with other kids from other schools when I was out of school would be like, are you the kid, are you Josh with Tourette's or the Tourette's kid, or, Tourette's Josh was a lot of it, It just became kind of like my name, which was weird because I didn't identify as that. It was just so weird that suddenly became all my personality.
Did you meet anyone else with Tourette's?
A little bit further down the line, maybe a couple of years in, my parents took me to a couple of Tourette's action meets, seminars, kind of that kind of thing. We drove to Brighton once and I met so many people in one room with Tourette's, which was a bit overwhelming, actually, if I'm being honest. It's a bit like a domino effect and everyone's screaming and shouting and that.
Okay.
It was great. It was great fun and some really powerful people up on stage. I think it's quite reassuring, and especially from a child's point of view, which is what I really try and do now. But from a child's point of view, seeing an adult was so powerful and realised that I am going to get through it. I think the biggest shock for me was actually seeing my family adapt to it, whether it be my sister. I've got 2 younger sisters, and my parents was a massive adaptation to their life, and understanding and having to come to terms with it, I think. And it's not like such a big transition, like, the old Josh is dead and new Josh is fuck you. But I had to I had to adapt as well.
Sure. And therefore everybody naturally has to adapt around you.
And friends as well at that age as well. That's tough because I think I'd say kids now are a lot more easygoing, if you know what I mean, when it comes to stuff like that. If you're a little bit different, they're like, all right, cool. You're just you. And then, but then it was a bit more like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't really know. I don't know. I remember my best friend, and we're still best friends now. The day I got back from that ski trip, I was so desperate and I had such a fear of missing out. His sister was having a birthday party, like a pirate themed. And I was so desperate to go round to the house. And my mum was like, are you sure? And I was like, no, I really want to go. And I remember I was twitching. I kept smacking my arm against a wall or a door. And my best friend Ryan was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I can't help it. He was like, well, try it. I was like, and he wasn't meant to be malicious at all. He was just trying to come to terms with it himself as well. His best mate, we'd been friends since year 3 and then really close to year 6, year 7. And he thought, he found it quite strange as well, especially when you kind of get into that age where you actually want to naturally swear.
Yeah.
I remember really vividly picking up one of my sisters from primary school and crossing the road. I didn't almost get hit by a car, nothing like that. But I was like, oh shit. And my dad went, what are you doing? I was like, I've got Tourette's. He was like, your condition is one thing, but you swearing is another. So that was even that's such a minor thing, but it was a really hard thing to disassociate between what's okay at my age and then what is acceptable because of my condition.
Let's talk about that.
I think some people with Tourette's will be able to speak to this, that they might be able to know what's coming out or know what's going, they know their brain. And there is some situations for me where now I'm a bit like, I know myself. I know the situation I'm in. I've seen something. I've had this 15 years. I can probably imagine what I'm going to say.
Can you give me an example?
I don't worry about it as much now, but there was a time in my life where if I saw people of different ethnicity to me, it could be like a racial slur or just any sort of comment might come out about their race, which is really scary and hard. But I could almost I didn't want to, or I wasn't like, oh, that's going to happen. But there was a time where I could almost predict that was going to happen.
Okay.
And for example, I've got another client who sits in my chair and has Tourette's, And he knows when he sees someone in a wheelchair, he's going to say something. He doesn't predict or know what he's going to say, but he knows that it's going to come out because he knows himself. But there is some people that do get a bit of a premonition, and there is people that can suppress. I've never found a way to suppress. I've tried different therapies and stuff like that, which I think is incredible that people can, especially in young people, like kids and stuff that can suppress it, because it is draining. An easy thing to compare is like if you've got like a tickly cough and you're in an assembly or something like that, and you've got to be quiet and you're really having to hold it in, but it's almost borderline painful to hold it in. That's exactly what it's like. And at some point you're gonna have to let it out. That's what I imagine that's like, but I can't suppress, so I wouldn't know, but that's what I think that's like.
How predictable do you feel your Tourette's is?
I wouldn't say it's that predictable. There's some shit that I come out with and I'm like, what on earth? But then as I got older, I've learned to appreciate it in a sense of like, I've never looked at myself as a very bright person, like being dyslexic as well. And I've struggled with that throughout the years. But then actually I've looked at my Tourette's in a different way within my brain, where I'm like, I must pick up on so much shit that I don't realise I'm picking up on that then comes out as a tic. My brain is amazing. Yeah. And especially like the detail, and I do sometimes even struggle to get my own words out. I tell you what, my tics don't stutter. At all. Yeah. I don't have a stutter or anything like that, but sometimes I trip over my words. But with my tics, it's very direct. No messing.
And clear and succinct,
yeah,
and short.
Weirdly, I'm not really that. I think I'm a good speaker, but I do trip over myself, and you know. But with my tics, it's not. But it's like actually having a split personality, because there's some things, especially as I got older, I'm not that immature. I don't want to shout MILF all the time or you know immature things. But unfortunately, that's what comes out, and it can be quite garish and vile at times. You know.
How safe do you feel?
I feel safer. I think kind of getting to that 16, 17, 18 mark, it was worrying because I wanted to become more independent. But actually the big bad world is a big bad world. And I think my parents were really worried about that. And I had a few situations where it was a bit close. Like I got beaten up once or twice. And there was a few times where I really wanted to go to something and my parents were like, either we come or you don't go. And there would be times where I wouldn't go because I didn't really want I'm getting to that age where I don't need my parents to come. And I was always quite an independent person, quite an outgoing. And I can imagine the constant worry they're under. And I see that now as I've got older. I don't have my own children yet, but I deal with a lot of kids in our family and stuff. So I can only imagine what they must have been going through, worrying about me with vocal and physical Tourette's in the world where not everyone at that point, especially, it was known, but not that known.
Are you aware of triggers? Are you aware of situations that are gonna...
Yeah, definitely. I am, but I think there is situations where you get used to a trigger. Your Tourette's can sort of change trajectory a little bit, and then you've got to adapt again. So there is sometimes, there's almost like a bit of a cycle. There's not a time schedule to that, but like, for example, before we sat down, you asked me about David Seaman, right? Which for about 4 or 5 months, that was really in my head, and it was coming out all the time. David Seaman touched me. David Seaman touched my balls. Nice gloves, David, whatever. And then it just stopped. And I don't talk about him as much now. Okay. It definitely does come up sometimes, especially if Arsenal's brought up or there is sometimes triggers with that. But it's David Seaman literally lived in my head rent free for about 4 to 5 months, I think.
How do you see Tourette's being represented in the media?
I think within the media, I think so many people associate Tourette's with coprolalia, whichever way around. Coprolalia, which is... I think it's a bit of a hard word to say with people with Tourette's. I think it's unnecessarily hard to say. But I think so many people see it as just a swearing condition, which it only affects the 1 in 10 with people with Tourette's. So I think it's really, I don't want to go as far as saying really rare, but it is obviously not as common as like something like motor tics or, you know, physical tics. And everyone has a different interpretation of it. But I think I don't want it to be glamorized within the media, because it's not all fun and games like it might seem sometimes. And don't get me wrong, yeah, I can see the humour in it. But it is the really hard side of it, like especially in public or in intimate settings or whatever. Like, for example, I had a situation at a wedding a couple of years ago where it was my cousin's wedding. I don't really know his wife's side of the family, and his mum was getting up and the bride's mum was getting up. One of those women being my auntie, and I've shouted MILFs at the top of my lungs. And loads of people laughed because I don't think everyone knew I had Tourette's. But then I think some of the people in her side of the family thought, what a fucking dick, like turning around. And I actually took myself out of the situation. I just wanted to go unnoticed that day. Because it wasn't about me. Yes. But this is the side of it where, yeah, I can laugh about it and I've come to terms with it. I don't often get that embarrassed, which I think isn't help with the embarrassment level. I don't get embarrassed about many things. You know, I love me cock. But it just shows that I try not to be that person a lot. But yeah, I think when it comes to how it's portrayed in the media, I think there is a misrepresentation, and it's not always about swearing. And I want to shine a light on the people that have Tourette's but don't swear. It's okay.
Yes, there's not a scale.
No, there isn't a scale. And also one thing I actually did want to touch on when it comes to Tourette syndrome, because I've had it before when I've met people and I've said I've got Tourette's, and if they see me at a certain time of day or a certain period or a phase in my life when it's not been that bad, someone said to me before, and I've had it actually multiple times, "Oh, I know someone else with Tourette's. Oh, a lot worse than you though." I'm like, okay, cool. Would you say that to someone who's autistic or someone who's, I know it's not the same thing, I'm not comparing.
People say that to me though about autism.
But isn't it?
Oh yeah, my friends knows it's someone who's severely autistic.
Okay. I didn't realise it's a competition. But it's the same. And I think even with Tourette's, it is a spectrum. And I don't really like the word spectrum because I think you do think of a level 1 to 10.
Sure.
I think there's just an umbrella. We all come under the umbrella of it. And, I am not...
But you can have different needs.
100%. And just because I've got everything, I spit, if I swear, I'm physical, I punch out. And just because, say you had Tourette's and you got a really bad eye twitch and you crunch your nose a lot or you throw your neck back or whatever, that doesn't mean I'm worse than you. And that's what I really want to make clear with people, that it's not about worse. We
kind of want to sort of box people off, don't we?
We're just part of the same community. That's what I see it as. And yeah, I think no one's worse than anyone else. And I think it's just about accepting each other for who we are. And like I said, I have had a few people comment on stuff before that have Tourette's apparently and saying, "Oh, I wish I had Tourette's like you." And I'm just like, sweetheart, I'm not insulted by that, but I just mean as in, don't think that I'm better off or you're not better off, or because we've all got to deal with it in our own way.
Can be yourself.
Just be yourself. That's the be all and end all, I think.
When were you diagnosed dyslexic? Where does that fit into this jigsaw?
It was kind of like mid through primary school. So I'd say maybe year 3 kind of age. I was very fortunate that my mum and dad kind of picked up on that quite early on, especially my mum, who's never been diagnosed, but she believes she's also dyslexic. And we used to do an out of school thing as well, where I used to go to a centre, I think it was in Bedford, at least once a month, where I'd be there all day going through tests and stuff, and we'd figure out like exercises to try and combat my dyslexic traits. It's not just mental, it's also physical as well with dyslexia. Like your balance can be thrown off, hearing as well can be slightly affected and stuff like that. So my mum always used to say that I used to learn to ride a bike at about a 45-degree angle, but I managed to still ride it, do you know what I mean? And I think it was quite obvious, but from a very young age, I loved not only like my own age company, but I also liked adult company. And I found that really fascinating because I wasn't that academic. Yeah, just from a very young age, making adults laugh or trying to show that I'm emotionally mature was really important because I think because I couldn't show my intellectual self as being as high.
So you wanted to adapt and compensate by having adult conversations, but making people laugh.
Yeah. And like I said, because I think I was slightly overcompensating, but I was very artistic. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, the dyslexia played a big part of my life when I was younger. Like I had lots of like overlays. I had tinted glasses because I couldn't read on a white background very well. Letters used to move a lot, couldn't retain information very well. Reading was quite low for a long time. But even as I've got older, I think to compensate that, even I wouldn't necessarily be able to fully know the meaning or be able to spell it, I've always liked to make sure my vocabulary is there as well.
Okay. And do you enjoy words? Forget spelling and that.
I can't read, retain and enjoy at the same time. I've really wanted to. I think there's nothing cooler than like seeing someone on the train or in a coffee shop or something reading the book. I'd love to, but it's just not something that I dread reading, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you see an interaction between your dyslexia and your Tourette's?
I do think they complement each other in different ways because I think with my dyslexia, I've seen the world in a slightly different way, which has then helped when it comes to my Tourette's because I've had to see it in a different way and also had to think about how people see me. Yeah, which actually I didn't expect that question to kind of throw me so much because it actually almost borderline makes me emotional because I do think if I wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia from a relatively young age and had such support from my parents for that, I think when it came to the Tourette syndrome, I think I would have really struggled more. I'd already been used to going to see specialists from about the dyslexia from a young age. And obviously my parents just wanted me to do as well as I could. But then when it came to the Tourette's, that was very intense. So I think it kind of almost prepared me for it.
Yeah.
In a way.
I think one of the other things that I that I see, Josh, is that a common trait and a wonderful trait of dyslexics is a very strong sense of moral justice. And what I see you doing through your work and being a brilliant role model is exactly that sense of moral justice for Tourette's.
Yeah. I didn't know that I was going to do that.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest. I think I have always had that a little bit. And I kind of, from listening to you as well, I think you do too. But on a massive spectrum of, I think, especially with your podcast doing this, I think you cover so many neurological disorders and try and advocate for them, which I think is a beautiful thing. And I'm so glad to be on here talking about it. Yeah, I didn't realise that's what I was going to end up doing. But I think I have always wanted to be a good role model for young people, regardless of Tourette's or whatever. And whenever I had anyone in my chair, I've always tried to make them feel, no matter what age, but especially with the young, it's just to make them feel comfortable. And there has even been situations where, I'm not thinking about anyone in particular, but there's been times where I don't think some people, young kids especially, have the support from their families. And I just want them to know that I can be that small little part, just that half an hour haircut in their 6-week period, just to let them know that they're all right.
So let's talk about that, because you have your own barbershop. The thing that has really struck me is you are someone who has physical tics and you have a pair of scissors and you're standing behind someone. Write down the facts. That sounds really unsafe. I'm interested in why being a barber, why did that path find you or you find it?
I'll take it back a little bit. I think a lot of people with Tourette's will understand this well. You do go through phases where when I was about 19, maybe 20, my Tourette's subsided quite a lot. To the point, not saying I forgot about it, because it was such a massive part of me, but it really subsided to the point where I could go quite a few weeks, maybe in a few months, without it being too severe.
Okay.
I could almost it could go undetected, which is unbelievable.
Wow.
It was almost like a relief. And I think a lot of people with Tourette's, especially when you've had it a long time, but there could be times as they get older where it could kind of calm down, but then it could come back up. And there would be periods where I could go quite a while, and then it would really spiral for good weeks or months, different phases.
Do you know why that is?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you. I don't think the doctors I've spoke to could tell me either.
Okay.
They're worried I wasn't going to be able to get a normal job, especially if how sporadic my Tourette's was. Like for a couple of weeks, couple of months, I'd be okay. I had a pub job and I was doing really well, and I was like a KP in a kitchen, and I took on lots of responsibilities, and then there'd be like one afternoon or one day that my Tourette's got really physical. I remember one situation where I was a Saturday shift preparing for Sunday, peeling not tomatoes, spongy. I was peeling spuds all day, and I got fuck all done. And I think it's because actually I was getting quite physical, and I was trying to fight myself, and I was really struggling to peel these potatoes. And I remember it got to the end of the day, and my boss was like, "What the is this? You've been in here for like 6 hours, and you've done like a bag or two." When really I should have been going for like a bag an hour.
Yeah.
Not that kind of bag. So that's how quick it is. I wasn't thinking about Coke this time of morning.
So quick.
Lovely. Yeah. So I was feeling spuds. So cut long story short, and I couldn't really explain myself, and I wasn't feeling strong enough to kind of articulate myself in a way that I could make him understand. Anyway, cut long story short, I ended up kind of leaving that job, kind of getting fired.
Okay.
And then I think that was a realization that our parents were like, "No, we've got to help you." My dad had all these log cabins and sheds, and I dressed the whole site and all of my toot, as I used to call it.
Yeah.
And I used to manage the sheds and stuff. And we did it like that, and it did work well. But I realised that I wasn't living up to the potential I thought I could. I hate throwing the word around, but I do think I was kind of a bit depressed at the time. Not in an overly dramatic way. I just don't think I was that happy. I was really living for the weekend, spunking my money away, constantly going back to my dad on a Thursday when I don't get paid till Saturday, like, "Can you give me some money? I've already spent it from last week," whatever. Yep. And I just realised it wasn't the way I wanted to live my life.
And how was your Tourette's?
Really up and down at that point. And then I think I just had a shift, and I was like, "Dad, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave. Mum, sorry, I'm going to have to do this." But Dad was like, "I'll pay you for 2 weeks and that's it, you're on your own." And I did feel like, yeah, Joe, I need this now. And I went and became an estate agent for a bit. I got a job that afternoon in an estate agent's down the road in Cuffley.
Yeah.
Michael. Yeah, so I did that for about 6 to 8 months, and no offence to the people I worked with.
It really stops your train of thought, doesn't it?
This happens a lot. I really do struggle. It just completely distracts me.
Yeah.
It's like
it interrupts you.
Yeah, it does. And it pisses me off. Sometimes I can keep the flow going. This happens at work all the time, and I rely on the customer to remind me what I was talking about. So I was working in the estate agents, and it was fine. And I just realised I'm not a lying, slimy So I couldn't do it. And there was one situation where I was like, no, this is it. And I'd been thinking about the barbering because one of my really good mates, best mate, Callum, was a barber. And I remember just sitting in the car one night, just being like, I don't know what to do, man. He was like, have you thought about being a barber? And I was like, obviously I thought about the limitations with my Tourette's. And at the time, and it was sometimes month to month, my Tourette's was relatively good. So I thought, fuck it, let's just do it. And, I'd saved up a little bit of money, asked my dad for a little bit of help, and I went and did a course up in Shoreditch, actually, at Total Barber, which is a great college.
And how was that?
I loved it. I really loved it. I loved the commuting into London. I loved the fact that I could dress how I wanted to dress.
Yeah.
I'd been in a suit for about a year. I mean, not quite a year, maybe 10 months. And I loved the creativeness of it. And I worked in my friend Callum's shop that he had with his brother. And I just really loved the whole aspect of it. I like the chatting. I like the casualness. I love the fact that there's a level of professionalism, but it still is quite casual. And I love the creativeness of hair.
So it really suited you as an environment.
Yeah. And it really did. And I think also using my hands was a big thing for me. I liked the tools. I liked all that stuff. Finished college. I really enjoyed that whole experience. Came out and I've went and found a job in St Albans. I worked for a guy for about 4 years. It was going really well. And I had a little bit of intermittency where my Tourette's got bad again. Tourette's just got quite severe where I was just taking a lot of time off. And he was like, Josh, what are we going to do about this?
When you say you were taking time off, tell me what that means.
I think it was embarrassment.
Okay.
My boss had to be like, Josh, I don't think we can keep doing it like this. With the vocal Tourette's, I'm worried about the kids in the shop, blah, blah. I completely understood. I think then I did have a bit of resentment because I was a bit like, we kind of had to go our own ways. I actually suggested I want to come back in the shop.
Okay.
Whilst my Tourette's is bad. And I don't think he was too keen on that. I completely respect he's trying to look after his reputation, safety in the shop. I was also understanding of that, but I just thought I can't live like this. And I definitely did slip into a bit of a depression then. And again, with depression, I didn't know I was at the time, which I think is when you really know you are, because I think the word depressed or depression is thrown around so much now, which, don't get me wrong, I know people do suffer.
Sure.
But just because you've had a bad day doesn't mean you're depressed.
Yes.
And I've had hardships in life with family situations and whatnot, but I think on the outside we've always seemed like we've got it all together. And it's like, actually, that's what it is. I don't think you realise that the person that's smiling could also be really struggling. And I think that's a big thing that we don't. I think now it's a little bit more seen. Even in 10 years, I think that's really shifted.
Yes.
And I think the way we talk about mental health now is it's great. There's a long way to go still. But so I started to realise that this could happen again. If I go and work for someone else, the same thing could happen.
Yep.
So God bless my dad and he invested in me and my family. We all pulled together, and I put everything I had into it. So my shop's called H&Co, Hughes & Co originally was, which turned into H&Co. I found a location in my local village and a bit more modern than I am, the shop itself. And I just had to put everything into it. And that's what we did. So after the first lockdown in 2020, I found this shop and luckily it had just been renovated. And then we just got going. And my Tourette's was quite good then for a while. And then it kind of took a little bit of a decline where I was starting to struggle a lot.
Okay.
And luckily I had a few staff that I could rely on that could cover me. But as we were getting busier and busier, just kept growing really. So we talked about 18 months, it'll be 2 years in March, that we started filming whilst I was ticking. Because it was my own shop, I thought, no, unless I'm really bad or really physical, I have to make that clear to the cameras and yourself that when I'm really physical, I do have to call it a day.
Yeah.
Which is a struggle for me to accept that. I do stop, yeah.
But you can, because it's your shop.
Of course, but now it's a weird thing where now I feel like I'm letting people down.
Okay.
With clients, because we work on bookings, get really booked out, and I even had a situation, I did post about it because I thought I want to be really raw and just let people know that I do post really positively, but that I do have really shit days as well with my Tourette's, because I feel like a lot of people see me really owning it, and I do own it. It is a massive part of me, but it's not all of me. But then this day took over, and I was really physical a couple of weeks ago, which hasn't probably happened for months and months and months, where I've had to call a day off because of physical tics.
In these days off, these periods where you can't be at work, what's going on?
Initially, I'm very emotional.
Okay.
I feel like I'm letting people down.
Okay.
JFK shot in the back of the head. Boom. And I feel fuck Trump. I feel really emotional. And then I kind of come round, I'm like, it's fine. We usually have to message people or call people, and so many people are so supportive. No problem, I'll reschedule. Hope you're okay, Josh, whatever. And then I simmer down a little bit. I try and rest up. I try and sleep as much as I can. I try and do things that are good for the mind and soul, really, as
Yeah.
much as possible. But it's still hard, especially being my business. I've got great staff. I've got a really great team who support me and understand and will manage everything for me when I'm off. So,
But you don't know when it's going to happen.
No, this is the thing. But I do get a bit of a sense of. It's really hard to explain it because it's not like I'm in my head. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be really physical today. But I just sometimes get a sense because it's been I've had it for such a long time now that I'm starting to understand my body a bit more. But for example, this day I'd done about 3 clients. My third one, I could just notice my hands. I wasn't in full control anymore. Luckily, this guy was like a clipper cut. I didn't have any scissors. I always had a guard on my clippers, and I got the haircut done. But if I really don't feel like I can do it, I will get someone to finish it. I don't want to scare anyone, but I did throw a pair of clippers at the wall after that, and that's when I had to call it. And I went home and it got to the point where I couldn't even hold my phone properly. So I just put it on a tripod and I just filmed myself sitting on the sofa chatting for a bit. And I was almost borderline on tears. And it was weird because then after the fact, when I came back to work, I think I took 2 days off for that. And I had people like, I had a lovely lady come in a couple of days later and she came and brought me like some chocolates and was just like, I saw your video and I just want to give you a hug and say like, you're amazing. And it was so, I had another mum waiting in a chair while she was talking to me. She almost got emotional as well because I think I'd seen this woman once about 2 years ago. She saw the video and she came in and she had no appointment or nothing. She just came in to see me.
Yeah. Let's talk about your wild following online. It's kicked off.
It has. It really has. I'll be honest, I owe credit to my beautiful fiancée, Lucy. She said, why don't you film yourself? I was like, no one's going to want to see that. I was like, no. Didn't have any microphones, just me and my phone on a little tripod. I just said, let's do it. And posted a couple, got quite a few 100,000 views off of basically a dead account. And then I posted a video with me and a little lad called Harry, who I cut Harry and his 3 brothers and his dad. And they used to all come in at once. And I just had a real bond with the whole family, but weirdly enough, especially Harry, and that's also something I wanted to put out there when it comes to those kind of connections that I'm putting out, because I think it's quite rare to see a full grown man like myself have quite a connection with a young lad, Harry at the time. How old was he when I first? Maybe like 5.
Okay.
And that's you don't see it often.
Yeah.
And it was just a completely lovely, genuine connection where he's just a lovely little chatty lad and we just bounced off each other and it just catapulted. And I think because I was saying such foul things, like I think I called him like a pedo in like the first 10 seconds of filming, he just took it in his stride and was cheeky about it and just did no judgment. And again, that's what I'm saying. Kids just adapt.
How do you think Harry sees you?
I'd like to think Harry sees me as a role model. I'd like to think that. I think he feels comfortable around me. I think if there's anything he ever wanted to talk about, he'd feel absolutely comfortable about it as well. And then we just kept it going and people started flocking to me a little bit. I had people coming from all over the country, whether they had Tourette's or not. But
yeah,
I started
what are they saying?
I think a lot of it was just shining a light on the fact that I'm really normalising it. And I didn't know why I was doing it initially. As in, I thought, yeah, fuck it, let's show it. But I didn't really know what the purpose was. I wasn't trying to become famous on TikTok or anything like that or Instagram. I just thought, this is something I'm really struggling with and I think people want to see it. And I don't think it had been done before. I think I'd seen reports of a barber with Tourette's in like New York about 5-10 years before, but never like filmed like I've done it or shown it in that kind of way. It just blew up. Like I think within weeks, we're like talking like tens of millions of views on that one video. It was a little bit overwhelming at first. And then obviously as time went on, I started to film a little bit more. And then I started to get a few more people in the chair that have got Tourette syndrome.
Yeah, let's talk about that. How's that been?
Oh, inspiring. I didn't realise that was going to make me feel like that. And also I didn't realise there'd be so many young people that had never met anyone else with Tourette's. And then seeing my kind of content online, I think it really not only help them, but then help their parents. And I think that's another angle that I'm really keen to look at and talk about and help, because I think there's a lot of parents out there, especially in certain parts of the country, that if you're not near London with the kind of things whether it's in NHS or specialists and stuff, I think there's not a lot that you don't know where to turn. You might have exhausted everything really early on. And I'm not saying that I had loads of experience with lots of other people with Tourette's, but like I had met other people. I'd been to different clinics up at Great Ormond Street. I just realised that them coming to me, I've done that because I've but I've put myself out there really openly for criticism as well as positivity, which there was some at start.
And what's the criticism?
I remember one comment really sticks with me. But it's wild that the bad ones do stick with you.
Yep.
I remember someone saying that I shouldn't be allowed around children.
Fucking hell.
That really hit home because I just felt so, I don't even know what the word would be. I just felt, it felt so degrading. Like that one, that I'm being purposely inappropriate. And we used to kind of retaliate to negative comments. And then actually I decided, let's not do it. It was between like my missus and my sisters. Sometimes they'd be like wanting to argue back, and I went, don't, just leave it. Let's not even give them any time of day. And I remember like the first time it happened that actually the following and the people on my accounts would just bombard them.
Yep.
I don't want that. I don't care if they have a negative view on me or not. I don't want people being harassed or bullied or whatever. But actually, if your view is really quite vile, then you should be told.
Yeah, and your community will do it for you.
And I think because I had built a bit of a following, which to be clear, it's lovely to have the following. It's not something I'm focused on. And I think that's why it's built quite quickly, because I'm not focusing on that too much.
Yep.
I'm aware of it, obviously.
Sure.
But it's not something that drives me. I think it's the engagement I get that really drives me and the people that it's reaching.
Yeah, and the help and the representation that you're putting out.
Because I didn't have that when I was younger. I did go, like I said to you before, I went to a few seminars here and there. And I think the big one was like Pete from Big Brother.
Yes.
But that was the only thing in the public eye that anyone had seen of Tourette's. I just felt like that wasn't enough. Not saying what he'd done wasn't right. Of course it was. Sure. But I think it was put into a real box. And because he was very physical and quite jittery and all over shot, I think people think he was mental. He's absolutely not mental. He's just got a condition where he's, and I think he is, he's got ADHD as well. I just felt quite alone because I didn't really, or I didn't think anyone would be able to understand from my point of view what I was going through. So then when I got to this age and started to get a bit of traction on there, I thought, no, this is why I'm doing it.
So I think you're our fourth guest with Tourette's, Josh. And we've had Jess Tom on, we've had Joe Black on, we've had AD Smith on, and now we have you.
Fuck 'em. Oh, sorry. I just kept thinking about, don't. They seem like they're lovely people. Yep.
But them. Obviously, their Tourette's manifests them in all in different ways. And I remember, sitting here with Jess, and she's very funny. Yeah. And she says that her Tourette's is very funny, and that she wants people to laugh. How do you want people to react to your tics?
I think it depends. It depends on what situation you're in. Like, for example, if I'm at work and I'm cutting someone's hair, I'm not filming it, nothing like that. It's just I'm working. I'd prefer if people do acknowledge it and laugh. I think only if they find it funny. I don't need people to laugh if they don't think it's funny.
Sure.
I prefer the acknowledgement, because there's no point acting like it hasn't been said or we awkwardly get through it. So when it comes to laughing, I'm absolutely fine people laughing as long as it's with and not at. But by the same token, I have had a situation before where people say too much, and I don't mind people adding on, and I've also had it where I've had an autistic child in the chair, and I used to have quite a thing where he used to go, hiya, and he kept going, hello, back. And then we got into an awkward loop. And then I had to kind of say to his mum, can you try and tell him not to respond? I get that he's autistic and he might not fully understand what's going on, but
I'm laughing because I'm autistic, and that is like the interview question of how did you find us? And me going, well, Google Maps. Right. Do you know, that is...
Yeah. But
it's really funny.
Someone's got to stop, and I don't know if it's going to be me. And so I'd be like, hiya, be like, hello, hiya, hello. Hiya, and I'm just like, right. And it's not his fault. It's absolutely not his fault. But, it's like a loop you can't turn off. And he's autistic, so he doesn't fully understand why. And he's probably been told all of his childhood to make sure you say hello to people, or be polite. And if someone says hello or how are you? Hey, how are you? Oh, don't. Yeah. You're actually crying a little bit.
I'm actually crying.
I love that though. How did you get here? Yeah. By car.
How did you find us?
How was your journey? But I think I think a lot of neurodiversity does kind of slot into each other a little bit, like a weird mismatched puzzle. Yeah, because I just have so much understanding for other people's conditions.
Yes.
But also acceptance.
Yeah.
I think understanding is a bit strong because I can't understand everything someone else is going through.
The patience and the tolerance and some of the compassion and the empathy of you're different.
Definitely.
I get it.
And back round to it again, when we're talking about what would I want people to, how would I like them to react? Just understand him. really, actually, rather than it always been about laughter, which is a massive part of it. But where I've sometimes said really savage things or really horrible swear words, I just want people to not make me feel worse.
Yes.
Because I feel quite bad enough as it is. And I'm just here trying to live.
But I hear you say you'd like it acknowledged and not ignored.
Yeah. No, not ignored. I don't mind when people find it easier just to act like it has. I don't mind that if that's if people don't, if someone would prefer to not acknowledge it. And I think it is sometimes just finding the line. Like my close friends are really supportive and really good, but especially like a couple of my boys, they can't not react, and it's usually with laughter and like real, and I'm fine with that, but it does egg me on, and it's really hard to explain that because it's, you know, like a comedian would, I assume they get a little bit of a buzz out of the fact that they're getting laughed about. Yeah. And I've always enjoyed that myself with trying to be funny or just making a bit of a fool of yourself. I've always been like that. But then with my Tourette's, it's like there'd be situations where I really don't want it to come out more. I'm sick of being a dick. Like I've come in my own head, I'm like, you look like a dick today, or you feel like a bit of a dickhead, or like I'm sick of coming across immature. When I'd like to think I'm not immature anymore, but some of the stuff that comes out, whether it's like, you know, this is another thing as well. Like if a big-breasted lady is near me, I'll be like, nice rack. And I don't mean to say that. And it can to make people feel uncomfortable. That's when I want the ground to swallow me up.
Oh,
and I don't mean to say
Tell me about that shame of just saying that,
it's
saying the wrong thing.
I'd say the worst thing for me is the racial slurs, 100%. And it's something that I've wanted to kind of talk about, because I'm not saying like, oh, poor us with Tourette's, we say racist things. I'm not racist at all, and I don't want to say racist things. And it's got me into real trouble at times. And that is when I want the ground to swallow me up. Like I remember when I think I must have been about 18, maybe 19. I was at a party and these couple of guys came up to me, and they were 4 or 5 black guys. And I said to them straight away, just because I know myself, and especially at the time, I knew that I was very vocal. And I said to them straight away, I was like, guys, just so you know, I've got Tourette's. If I say anything, I don't mean what I'm saying. And they were like, cool, whatever. And they kind of didn't acknowledge really what I was trying to say to them, but I didn't want to keep pushing it because nothing was wrong. And then a bit of an altercation happened between them or someone else, and I just kept saying the N-word. And I got beaten the shit out of. And the security guard was also black, and I could not stop saying the N-word. Kept saying it. I don't think he knew whether to help me or not, because I kept saying it. Then I think he thought, he's literally getting his head kicked in. He can't stop saying it. So he did drag me up and pulled me up and helped me. And then these guys after, like, oh, sorry, man, we didn't know. And I just felt like, F you. I told you. But then again, from their point of view, they'd probably look at me saying, this white boy was calling us the N-word, and I'm not going to react. But I had just said that I had Tourette's. But then again, I'm saying the N-word, which is a really, really insulting thing to say.
Oh, it's so tough.
It's a really tough one. And like, I wasn't annoyed at them at the time. You're
slightly smiling saying it, but I know behind your eyes, like, that's
really uncomfortable for kids.
That's an impossible situation.
What you meant to do.
Yeah.
Some people would completely understand. Like, for example, one of my videos with Finn, young lad, who's also got quite vocal Tourette's, and his kind of really come on. The best advice I give to anyone is, even if you're on a train, like I got the training this morning and I wasn't too vocally twitchy this morning, so it wasn't really needed. But if you're on a carriage, even if it's a couple of people, I just let people know.
Yeah.
Just drop a subtle hint, just to let you know, I've got Tourette's. If you hear me making any weird noises or swearing or shouting, just don't worry, don't mind me. There's about over 300,000 people who've got Tourette's in this country. That's just the ones that are diagnosed. And that could be from a minor couple of tics to all the way up to the spectrum of people I've met that literally cannot sit still or close their mouth. So it's about the prevention of any harm or any insult. And again, but we've come on leaps and bounds, and I've met so many amazing, beautiful people that suffer with Tourette's and are really trying to advocate for this kind of stuff. It's still hard, and not everyone will understand, and not everyone's seen my fucking TikToks or Instagram, or course, and it does happen. And I get recognised a lot now in the street, which is amazing. And I think I'm not really worried about the getting recognised, but I'm actually so grateful that I get acknowledgement from people saying, oh, is this you? Oh, I love your content, man. It's like, yeah, that is lovely, and I welcome that. But actually, it's the fact that I know they've seen it, and hopefully they understand a bit more now.
You're trying to authentically portray Tourette's and representing. Your biggest channel, your biggest kind of way of doing that is social media. But there's swearing, there's inappropriate language that can get censored, or maybe videos taken down, as is happening in the community. Like, how do you wrestle with that? How do you navigate that?
I think it's really hard. I mean, I try to, when it comes to the edit, for example, like I film typically for about 45 minutes to an hour, and I'm condensing that down into 2 minutes. And you want to leave the funniest stuff, most educational stuff, heartwarming. You want to leave all the best stuff in there. But when it comes to censorship, I'd love to get clearer guidelines on what it is or isn't. Like, okay, fuck you. Like, if like C word was a word that we can't use, can tell me. Yeah. So I try to be as sensitive as possible when it comes to my content. But any show I've done, whether it be a podcast or anything like that, I don't want to be censored.
Yeah.
I actually swear quite casually myself as it is. I'm quite a swearer. I think it adds emphasis.
Yep.
I think it can show passion. I think it can sometimes be unnecessary. Sorry, going back to your original question, social media with the swearing and that kind of stuff. I don't agree people should be cancelled for that. I think especially with something like TikTok, which is a massive powerhouse, which I think is such a massive corporation that they have to follow the strict guidelines of that company. But I think there must be some trigger words, but that, like I said before, I think if it was clearer, then I think it'd be easier to work around it. But sometimes I've had it where stuff has been taken down or the sound, so the audio has been taken out, which defeats the object of what I'm doing.
Yep.
Without the audio, it doesn't really work. It's just a silent haircut. I think it's really hard.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to do, I did a few when we first started doing it, a few more lives.
Yeah.
But that is very unpredictable, because if I said something that I can't then take back, that's scary.
Yeah.
Because then that's out there. People could be recording it, that kind of thing. And that could come back to haunt you. That's a scary thing. Boo. But JFK shot in the head, bang. But I think there is a situation where again, I fucking lost my train of thought. So sorry.
No, but I'm with your train of thought, which is it's really tough. Ultimately, I sit here just going, wow. You're trying to teach people, you're trying to inspire people, you're trying to be genuine, be authentic. And ultimately you have to be really hyper aware of your edit 100%. And of what you say. And okay, you can edit. So you kind of know, you build up that knowledge of
definitely
this is not going in, and that kind of stuff is, and this is what works.
I hate a beeper. Can't stand it. And I know sometimes I've listened to quite a few of your pods and you do beep out stuff, and I absolutely don't mind if I've sworn myself, because I do find it different. Tourette's and me, it's like Tourette's is sitting next to me there. I don't mean to do it like that, but we are different. I don't mind me being bleeped out because I say the F word a lot, whatever. But if it's my Tourette's, which I can't help, I don't appreciate that, because I think it's who I am, and I'm not going to apologize for that.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point.
And that's the thing. It's almost like, hey, TikTok.
It's so hard, because I think the way their algorithm works, the way it's kind of they pick up on things and it's detected, I'm assuming is a lot by AI nowadays. And I think if a person came across one of our videos that was, say, flagged by AI or whatever, oh, there's a lot of foul language in this, let's have a look at that. If a person looked at it and saw, okay, this account is called the Tourette's Barber. He's got a video in his barber chair and he has said this, this, and this. I think a human would go, oh, well, actually, but you can tell what he's doing. He obviously does have Tourette's. Okay, we'll let that go. But I do think it isn't done like that. No. And I'm not saying it should be, because it can't be. No. Surely not. It can't be done like that. The algorithm, the way it works, and the way that there must be some sort of nets and stuff gets through, some doesn't. Like, I've had a video taken down and actually deleted off TikTok recently, which we didn't realise because it was a little bit further back in my feed kind of thing. And then we just noticed it was gone. And I do have a contact that I'm going to speak to and get it sorted, but I've been given no reason for that.
And what was the video?
It was me and a client called River, who's also got Tourette's. I can't even, there would have been quite a lot of foul language. I can't tell you why though. They didn't tell me why.
Okay.
And that's what I find frustrating. If they said to me, your video has been taken down because of this and this, I'd be like, okay, well, now I know what to work on going forwards. But can I just re-edit that and put it back up and go from there? But that's been up for months and months. But what I wanted to say was, in this day and age, with social media and technology and all that stuff, I think there's so much pressure now to be successful very young. And like we've already said, I'm 30 in January, I'm 29 now. I've done quite a lot already and I'm wanting to do more. And you always hear, trust the process. The process. The process is very, very hard. And we're always thinking about the end goal. And I think you see so much of this online where, like, for example, what always springs into my head is these, do you know these who are trying to sell this lifestyle of nice cars and happy for you, sweetheart. You go and do that.
Yeah.
But don't act like that's normal.
Yeah.
Because not everyone's going to be able to do that. And I'm not saying that I think I'm on a trajectory of I'm going to have a £2 million house, and I just want to be able to look after my family and enjoy life and be able to work and do something good with my life. And also, like we've said before, I know I want to be a good role model.
Yes.
Not in every aspect of my life.
No.
But you know, a good role model, but also an imperfect role model. That's what I would like to be, actually.
Well, but I think, just to interrupt you, like that's exactly what you're being. It's not something that you need to have as a goal, because it's in you to do that. And it sounds like it's been in you to do that, whether consciously or not, from a very early age. That whether it's because you're funny or because of Tourette's or dyslexia or starting a business or whatever it is, people gravitate towards you, and you have an innate or inbuilt aspect of being a leader, you know, whether it's kids or adults or team or family or whatever. Yeah, they're attracted to that. And so that's in you to nurture and help flourish, rather than you've decided it is, or you're chasing it or pursuing it.
It's not like I've shifted.
No.
And thought I appreciate that, because I've never really thought about it like that to a degree. Yeah, I think I've always been like that. And I really rely on people, don't get me wrong, which I think is another thing where, again, social media, it can be portrayed in a way that you don't see. You see the plant coming out of the ground, but you don't see the roots.
Yes.
And my roots, are my family and my friends and my partner Lucy. I don't know, I keep saying partner. My fiance Lucy. We're getting married in 2026, but yeah, and we've been together. I'm putting it all out there. We've been together 12 years, so she's been such a massive part of my life.
Yeah,
and my story. What you see online and how everyone else is doing it. We really put pressure on ourselves nowadays to get everything like this ideal Instagram perfect life, and it's just, life is not like that. And even the people that look perfect on there, that isn't how they live.
No,
that's what winds me up with social media, and that's why I think I'm trying to portray it in a certain way, and that's what I'd like to think I'm trying to do as well. Like, I show the positives, like even today I might even make a little video of the fact I've come and seen you today.
Yeah,
but that's because that's a fun positive thing, which I think people want to see. But then, like I did a couple of weeks ago, where I showed the hard side of my Tourette's and the emotional side, and I don't mind saying I have to go to therapy. I rely on people. I've dealt with stuff in family. Like, I've also had touch with addiction in my life and with family. Also, even what you do see online, there's a lot more depth and a lot more situations behind the scenes that you wouldn't necessarily know about, but it's what makes the person who they are.
Yeah, and that vulnerability is another incredibly important aspect of being a good leader, because it demonstrates and portrays safety for other people to be like, actually, I need some help, or actually, I'm not okay.
I've personally got better at that as I've got older.
Yes.
But also it's holding your own as well, which I think in this day and age, a lot of people, I think especially older people, look at the younger generation like, oh, they're all snowflakes. I'm like, yeah, sometimes they are. But also at the same time, I think younger people are just so much more in touch with their emotions that actually they bubble to the surface a lot easier.
Yeah, they are more likely to ultimately say what they need.
Definitely. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, rather than take what they're given.
And and we don't have to put up with it. Yeah, I think it's really hard growing up in this day and age, if I'm being honest. I think there's a lot out there. And I think that's why I do focus on, with my content, younger people, because I do think there's a lot of hardship. I'm not saying any other generation, anyone older didn't have hardship. Of course you did. But I think we're just living in a real time of uncertainty, but also we know too much.
Yeah.
And
but
that's also
you kind of flip this against, like, I think about, my 3 girls growing up, and there's a part of me that's so incredibly optimistic for them, of like, you're going to grow up with totally different belief systems than I had. You're going to grow up with access to way more information and awareness of the world than I had. You talk a bit about the impact of social media on people's belief systems, and it sends things the other way. People believing they need to have X, Y, and Z life, or that X, Y, and Z will happen, or you can be an overnight success, or etc.
Prime example of that is if you ask majority of maybe 10-year-olds, maybe it's not quite as much, what do you want to be when you're older? I want to be an online gamer, or I want to be a YouTuber or something like that. It's like, well, where's this come from? Because I do get quite a lot of young people coming up to me, and I think it is just the sheer following that gets them overexcited or thinks it's amazing, when actually I'm just buzzing that I can get such a reach and get my message out to so many people.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty grateful for that.
Yeah. And that's all you need to, that's all you need to focus on. Yeah. Making it genuine and real. Can't worry about what everyone else is doing, because they're going to do what they're going to do.
A phrase I've always liked, you can't worry about things that you can't control.
No.
And that to me has really resonated, because there's a lot of things that I can't control in my life. So you just
what somebody thinks about you is none of your business unless they tell you.
100%. No, definitely.
What item have you brought?
The acorn. For me, I've struggled with like smoking like cigarettes and vapes and stuff, and I'm still kind of battling with that to try and stop. And I just felt like I needed something in my hands to kind of keep me occupied. And I think an acorn represents me quite well, because again, when I was young, I always felt like people thought I was stupid, and I overcompensated with that. And I think sometimes you can look at a mere acorn and think there's nothing really in there. And actually, when you give it a little bit of a shake, you can hear that there's something in there. And if I planted this, that's going to grow into a massive tree. And I know that sounds so soppy and stereotypical, but I just feel like, do you know what? This little acorn was me when I was a lot younger, and it still hasn't fully developed yet. And that's what I'm in the process of doing now. And the end product will be a massive oak tree. That's the whole plan.
It's a great analogy. River, our middle daughter, one of her middle names is Oak. And 1 in 10,000 chance that's going to turn into a big oak tree. So not every acorn makes it.
Exactly.
But
you got to hold on to it. And I do keep this with me quite often. This actually sits on my bedside table. Lucy loves, like, I think she definitely thinks it's a bit weird, but she accepts it and she thinks it's quite sweet. And I think I've done that since a child. If I kept everything I collected over time and picked up, I probably have quite an array of things, and completely obscure things like bits of plastic and
it's really funny, because next to my sink in my bathroom, I have a little tray, and it's usually got it's got a green dot earring, and I've got an acorn.
No way. There is something inside it, and that's what I feel in my head, where actually I have portrayed. I think that people see me that there's not much inside there, up in the noodle. And there actually is. And I know that what I'm worth, and I know that I'm a decent person, and I'm trying to make that even more so. So I think that actually, once you get to see me, once you give me a rattle, you realise there's a bit more in there.